I'm out on a survey this morning and I've just come across yet another example of one plant species just getting in the way of what would otherwise be a really, really nice habitat. So just over here is an upland acid grassland that I've just surveyed that contains enough indicators to qualify it as a good representation of that habitat type. Now, acid grassland is a pretty important habitat. Upland acid grassland is classed as a habitat of interest, whereas lowland acid grassland you're classed as your priority habitats. However, even with it being a habitat of interest, it is still of some importance. And separating me, where I'm stood now, from where that acid grassland is an electric fence. Now that is not enough to stop what should be priority species and acid indicators making their way into this section of land if it weren't for all of this. It is just wall-to-wall bracken. I know you can't see right now, but the whole way down this hill is just completely covered in bracken. Now what that does is it just completely outcompetes all of the indicator species that might otherwise be here. So bracken is very fast growing, it's pretty deep rooted, so it's hard to get out. And as I'm sure you can all see and know, it spreads its leaves pretty wide, so you cannot see through that, which means light can't get through that either. Everything that should be the ground flora in this area is instead being completely choked out and outcompeted by all this stuff. And bracken is really, really difficult to get rid of once it is there. There's only one type of chemical that works on it, and that is currently out of manufacturing and banned in some countries as well because it really damages waterways. So understandably, you can't just go spraying that all over hillsides. But you can't pull bracken out. If you cut it back, it's pretty resilient, so will often just regrow, or new bits of bracken will just fill its place and outcompete everything again, and the cycle will just start again. So I actually have an example of this right here beneath my feet. So I'm stood in a small clearing with not much bracken cover, and all of this down here is sheep sorrel. Now that is an acid indicator species and quite an important species to find. And I am sure that would be covering the ground on this hillside normally if it wasn't for all this bracken just filling up the space. So it's just unfortunate. It's just another example of what otherwise would be a really nice habitat just getting completely covered by a pretty ecologically invaluable species and one that's really hard to get rid of. And it's really frustrating to see when you're out in what would otherwise be really lovely habitats like this.